so that all they can share them with a bunch of the greatest people in this state. Last year we raised $64,000. Tonight we have a goal of $75,000. Every other time they've laughed at us when we always set those goals, which are beaten every time. And we hope you will tonight. How many of you in here have been affected by cancer in your life? How many of you have lost someone to cancer that was in your family? Well, I join you, and that's one of the reasons I have so much love in being able to do these events all over the state of Arkansas or anywhere else we can speak. We're going to find a cure for cancer someday, and you'll be able to make it happen tonight. I would like to introduce you to a person that has talked about her, and so far she's won and is really doing great. She is a cancer survivor. Would you please welcome Miss Heath?
I brought my notes up here because many of you guys know that with cancer comes cancer brains. You can't remember everything that you're trying to talk about. So forgive me for having notes for this, but let me just say how honored and thankful I am to have the privilege to be up here on this stage tonight to share my story. I know there are several survivors among you guys. There are several people who have been the support system for people who have gone through cancer. And we're all heroes for going through one of the toughest battles we could ever imagine. Last year, my friend Sasha Pilkington invited me to this event, and I got to hear her inspiring words of hope. Not only am I thankful to have the honor to speak, I'm thankful to be here a year later. God gave me another year of life. You see, when I came to this event last year, it was just 3 days after my very first chemotherapy session. I couldn't even finish the food that we had that time. I ended up taking the food home to my husband because I just had no appetite, and that's one of the things that happens when you have chemo. Incidentally, it was a chemotherapy session for stage 3 breast cancer. Incidentally, just 3 days ago, I got the results from my most recent CT and bone scans, which said no evidence of cancer. Last year, my picture was in the Survivor slideshow, and when they asked for all the survivors to stand, I was really hesitant because literally it was 3 days since my first chemo. I didn't know that I could consider myself a survivor, but I'm here to tell you that I was a survivor then, and I'm still a survivor now. This last year has been really insane with needle sticks, chemotherapy, surgeries, drains, nausea, and so much more. I'm sure many of you can relate to that if you've been through it or if you've been a caretaker of somebody who's had cancer. I owe my survivor status to several factors. One, a support system that has met many needs, kept my spirits up with cards and flowers, picked up my slack at work in my many absences, and prayed for me constantly. Two, a husband who really meant it when he vowed almost 2 years ago to love me in sickness and in health. He's been one of the strongest people I've had in my life, and I wish he could be here tonight, but he's a paramedic for MIMS, so he's out saving even more lives. Also an intelligent and talented group of healthcare providers who've used their expertise to rid my body of cancer. And last but not least, a God who tells us to consider the lilies and sparrows, who knows the number of hairs or lack thereof on our heads, loves us unconditionally, and is the ultimate healer. My experience with cancer started at a very young age. Around the age of 9, one of my grandmothers was diagnosed with a cancer in her reproductive organs. She beat that round of cancer, and then a few years later she lost that battle. About 3 years after that, my other grandmother died from lung cancer. So at a very young age, I've been very aware of cancer and its ill effects on the body. just a couple of years ago, I watched helplessly as one of my childhood crushes died from brain cancer in Oregon. In college, I went to Henderson. I noticed the Henderson State table over there. I started out as a nursing major, and I was able to help with a lumpectomy for somebody who had breast cancer. And then when I got into the work field, I worked for the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette for a while, and I cried and tried to hold back tears as I interviewed breast cancer survivors for our breast cancer awareness features. But never did I expect that one day I would be in for the ride of my life. In July 2014, I suddenly developed really bad back pain and decided to go see a doctor in the new town that I had just moved to a few months prior. While I was there, I just happened to ask him if he would just check out this little lump that I had found in my left breast. I found it odd, though, when he was less concerned about my chief complaint and was more focused on that lump that he also felt. Even though I was only 29 years old at the time, he recommended that I go and get a mammogram. His careful examination saved my life. At stage 3, I had 2 lymph nodes involved, and I actually ended up having a second spot in the left breast. A mammogram and a biopsy later, a pathologist called me afterwards, and I'll never forget the words when she said, "Unfortunately, it's cancer." Of course, I tried my best to keep my composure as a whirlwind of emotions washed over me, but I immediately felt like my short life had reached its end, and I was devastated. Over the last year, I've lost my hair, I've almost lost my nails, I've gone through medically induced menopause, and I don't want to do it again, but I'm going to. I've been through 7 surgeries, and 3 of those have happened since July 31st of this year. I still have bandages from that surgery. I have scars underneath my clothes that tell a story of a fighter. But in the last year, I've shared laughs with friends who've donned goofy hats with me at my 30th birthday party. I've been able to get involved with the youth ministry at my church, and they have kept me young and vivacious as they've cheered me on throughout my entire treatment process. And I've also met strangers who have prayed with me in the middle of Walmart, or little girls who've come up to me and said, "Ma'am, I really hope you have a better day today." One thing that I learned about my experience is that cancer is not discriminatory at all. I was just in a room a couple days ago with about 50 other breast cancer survivors, and it was amazing to see the difference in their ages, their races, their body types, their socioeconomic statuses. All of us may have experienced breast cancer, of those ladies that we had there, but our fights and treatments were all different. Some had lumpectomies, some were fully reconstructed, some were at stage 1, some were at stage 4. But the hope I saw in their faces and the positivity in that room inspired me even more than I've been inspired this last year. If anything, cancer has taught me that God is totally in control. I've even thanked Him for entrusting me with this trial because it has brought me closer to Him and really made me realize the meanings of faith and hope. I found out during this process that I have the BRCA1 gene mutation, which means I'm still at risk for ovarian cancer, as are all of my 5 sisters. So I know I have to be vigilant about screenings for the rest of my life, and they have to be cautious as well. I wanted to share with you all the top 11 things that I learned as a cancer survivor. 1, always look for the silver lining, even if that means the new gray hairs that start coming in once your hair grows back. 2, people want to feel needed while you're battling cancer. Let them do something for you because, let's face it, you need the help and it'll bless them too. 3, each person's cancer experience is unique, but some of your best resources are people who have been there. And I can say that for Sasha Pilkington. She was somebody that I called and was like, how do I get rid of this nausea? What can I do to start eating again? and she was really helpful with that. 4, prayer and faith works. 5, and this I hope doesn't offend anybody, but if you're young, expect to be surrounded by people who are your grandparents' age at every oncology appointment that you have. But cherish the stories they tell and don't flinch when they call you kid. That happened to me. The cancer your parents or grandparents had and the treatment for it is not the same. Thanks to research and advances in medicine that have made treating cancer so much better than it was 15 years ago when my grandmothers lost their battles, I'm here today to say that I've lived with this cancer. 7, and I'm sorry, you guys are all eating, but expect to talk openly about your bowel movements. And in my case, expect your spouse to too, on Facebook. We've all been there in one way or another. Number 8, learn to be flexible when it comes to the treatment plan. Getting from point A to point B sounds great in theory, but in practice we know there's a few other points along the way. There's a reason we're called patients. 9, find a reason to celebrate all the little things. Is it your last day of chemo? Eat cupcakes. Felt the wind blow through your hair for the first time in a long time? Eat another cupcake. Didn't tense up during a port access? High five. You're gonna have a mastectomy in the morning? Why not celebrate with a boob voyage? Number 10, if you forget a birthday, a meeting, or how to pump your own gas, blame it on chemo brain. You've earned that right, haven't you? And last but not least, cancer may be the biggest fight of your life, but you are not alone in the battle. God and your friends are with you always. Yeah.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is strength.